Welcome to I Still Call It a Lariat, a pro wrestling podcast. This is the go home episode before Money in the Bank. We just finished off Forbidden Door. I don't know how forbidden the door really was, but we'll get into that in our review episode of that. With me, as always, is Mr. Showtime, Michael Wright. How you doing today, Michael?
Oh, you know me, Steven. I'm living the dream.
I, of course, am stevezapf. This is our show. We are going to talk wrestling and hopefully not annoy too many people or annoy everyone in the world.
No promises.
Real quick, go through our nonprofit organization, Tap Cancer Out. It helps with Alex's Lemonade Stand, American Brain Tumor Association, Isabella Santos Foundation, Little Pink Houses of Hope, Camp Sunshine, Christopher's Haven, the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins, CureCervicalCancer.org, First Descent, and Tom Coughlin's J Fund. As always, this is a huge organization. It helps out with so many good things, and everyone I know has been touched by cancer in some way, shape, or form. I feel like this is definitely something everyone can get behind. And real quick, before we get into other wrestling news, I want to throw a big thank you out to Kakoa for doing the interview with us. It was awesome. Amazing. It went better than we even thought it was going to go, which we already had high hopes for it, and it actually exceeded any hope or expectation we had. Kakoa, thank you again for doing that for us. And as I said, we will probably have a few more interviews going through up until just about SummerSlam, I think.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ruin that for us by botching that interview, but with how good Kakoa was, even you couldn't have screwed this up. So we're set. I think we're going to have a bunch of really good interviews coming up next. And all kidding aside, I absolutely love that interview. I learned a bit myself. It was a really cool deep dive. So if you haven't listened to it yet, check it out. Give us a like in whatever way you listen to that stuff. It really helps out at the end of
the day. The likes and the follows help us out the most, folks. And it doesn't cost you anything. You just have to give that little thumbs up button. I know a lot of people say to hit it. Don't hit it. Just click it with your mouse.
Yeah, if you punch the screen, it doesn't work.
No, it's not the same. It does not work like that. All right, let's get down to wrestling. Wrestling. Around the wrestling world, he is going by Donovan Dijak now. His contract has expired. He's already had a match on the Indies, and he teased showing up at Forbidden Door. There were a lot of wrestlers that they were kind of hinting at that might show up. Truthfully, not too many people showed up, but we will get more into that in our episode where we review it. But Dijak, he is a huge talent. I could see AEW or even TNA possibly signing him and doing some cool stuff. He's also kind of got that monster gaijin thing that Japanese promotions look for. So I could see him showing up there.
Yeah, I actually kind of hope he shows up in New Japan or TNA. I just fear that Dijak kind of falls into a similar situation he just left, where if he goes to AEW, I could see him easily having a nice big show up and everyone makes a big deal about it, all the chatter. And then 2 weeks later, he kind of washes down the card and he's just part of that mixture of just so much talent they have no idea what to do with. I think he fits that. I have no idea what to do with this guy. Whereas in TNA, I think he can make a huge impact, exactly what you just said, like going out to New Japan. He can make a huge impact out there, pun intended, maybe. And so I think those are better, but that's what I'm rooting for. I mean, obviously, AEW is going to drop a bag of money in his lap. You do you. But I think that his career long term might benefit more from New Japan or from TNA.
I agree. I'd rather see him go there. I think unfortunately, there's already someone who kind of fills his role in AEW, and that's Big Bill. Honestly, and he's a smaller version of Big Bill, so like he's more athletic, but it's still the same basic guy. Other than that, we also have Ricochet's contract has officially expired as of July 1st with the WWE. So I'm wondering if we're going to see that Irish wrestler show up in AEW eventually, or if all this news of him not re-signing a contract is once again Papa H putting fake news out into the world. I've had a lot of people really think that Mr. O'Shea is not staying, or is staying in WWE. So be cool to see where he ends up.
Yeah, I mentioned it in like an episode or two ago where I could have seen this being the fake news. I'm convinced that they're having their own little PR extravaganza. Chris Lynn Gentile is just churning out news stories that don't really exist. So I could see that happening. I think that he probably does go to AEW, like in all honesty, at this point in time. But like I could easily be wrong with this one. Them just like setting this up to have him come in and mess with Braun Breaker or whatever it is that they have him coming in to do.
A lot of people are worried too that Samantha Irvin is going to go with him. I don't think that's going to be a thing.
Why would she?
I don't see that being a thing. I don't see her wanting to do anything more than what she's doing. And truthfully, they're not going to give her time to do it on AEW. So there's no reason for her to leave.
I feel like at this moment in time, she's just as over as Dominic isn't, because everyone has been gushing over her since WrestleMania. And like they kind of just did like a passing of the torch with her a couple Raws ago. So
with
I really
Lillian, right?
Yeah, with Lillian Garcia, like they came out, like it felt kind of torch passery, or however you might say that. So I don't see her going anywhere, but like there's not a thousand examples of couples being at both promotions, different promotions here and there. Like
different promotions.
Rhea and Buddy Matthews is a great example of how that works right now.
I mean, Steve Macklin and Deonna Purrazzo are in two different promotions.
Yeah. So, I mean, you go and work where you work. Like, how many people actually work with their significant other? I don't think this is something that's going to stop them. I know there's a ton of travel. I know that really sometimes hurts a relationship when it's long distance, but I don't see Samantha Irvin leaving her fantastic position as the Raw commentator, announcer, where everyone absolutely adores her, for her to follow Ricochet. That's just not. That's not.
I think it would be a terrible plan for her career,
unless it comes with a big bag of money. Big bag of money changes all things. Go nuts.
Big bag of money. I mean,
Tony Khan. Sure, why not?
Tony Khan does like to give out those big bags of money. So we've got also the Creed brothers are the newest wrestlers to go cross promote. They are going to Bloodsport, which I believe is GCW. They're going to be doing the event for them. They are being promoted as separate. I don't know if that means that they are not going to wrestle as a tag team, or if they are it just so happens that so that they could get a little bit more publicity, they're putting both of their names out there on separate posters. But this is also another one of those cool things. Shayna Baszler was on this recently. Again, this goes along with AJ Styles going over to Japan. Io Sky, sorry, she's not Io Shirai anymore, but Io Sky going over to Magnolia. There's a lot of cool movement going on in the wrestling world, and once again, that door doesn't feel so forbidden anymore. And I know
there's all partnerships now, and they're starting to stable up. The companies are stable against each other.
This is feeling more like which one's the Harry Potter where all the different wizarding schools all show up? It feels like that. Like they're all just there's all just different areas.
Why would I know about the Triwizard Tournament? I'm not that kind of geek. Shish. Come on, Steve, get it together. But I will say the Bloodsport is catching some top talent. Like, not that the Creed brothers are main eventers at this point at all, but they're getting main roster people coming down there. I know like the TNA partnership is with NXT specifically at this point in time, it seems like. So like I understand that they're not getting like Drew McIntyre going down there or something like that, even though he has the history. But like Bloodsport's getting main roster, like solid mid card people coming their way.
And it's another American promotion. Like they're allowing this to go to American promotions. This isn't just another spot over in Japan or Europe or something. This is in their backyard, so they are letting this stuff happen now.
And I will say, I'm keeping an eye on the Creed brothers at Bloodsport. I think you're going to see those two guys go off. Like if you look back in 5 years or even like 2 years on the moment that they actually got over, it might be this like the matches leaking out of this because they're going to be able to do what they do best in Bloodsport compared to having to kind of rein it in a little bit. I think in WWE because it has to be a little bit more showmanship, a little bit more of the entertainment side of things. Whereas in Bloodsport, they're going to go out there and they're going to go wrestle some people.
Actually wrestle.
Yeah.
So going on from around the wrestling world to a little bit more promotion specific. TNA, Steve Macklin and Nick Nemeth were the latest qualifiers for that 6-way match for the TNA World Heavyweight title at Single Anniversary. So that gives us Josh Alexander, Moose, Steve Macklin, and Nick Nemeth. We are still kind of leaning as this is a really good way for Joe Hendry to possibly get the TNA World title. Or I could see it being Joe Hendry, but I could also see it being like this is a really good way to get that title off Moose, if for no other reason, with all the movement with between TNA and NXT. It gives you a lot more reason for your TNA champion to go over to NXT and not feel like Moose, like he said, he beat main roster guys while they were still in TNA. So it's hard for them to just put him into NXT and be like, well, you're still just the TNA champion. But he's not just the TNA champion. He's the TNA champion, a former Super Bowl champion, and a guy who's beaten Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and a couple other guys that were on the main roster at different points. So
yeah, if you put Moose up against Trick Williams, you have to put over Moose.
Have to put over
absolutely
Moose.
Have to put him over Moose. Like he has earned that spot. Trick Williams is still a young person. That NXT, no matter how entertaining or however good it is, it's still a developmental league, and that's something you'd have to give the respect to someone like Moose. I will say in this qualifier match, obviously, so we know 4 people, right?
4. Macklin, Nemeth, Josh Alexander, and Moose. Those are the 4. We got 2 more.
2 spots left over. Obviously, one of them is going to be Joe Hendry, though I've said his name a couple of times, and he has not appeared in this room, so a little disappointed there.
I think he's still in Scotland.
He might be. He's trying. He's doing his best. The other person that I wouldn't be surprised in this, and I haven't looked at what TNA's card is looking up now, so like, if this is false news, I apologize. I haven't looked ahead. But I can see Frankie Kazarian coming in here and being that last person within this and coming out on top, being someone who has been such a mainstay in TNA, never having a world title. A 6-way eliminator match is a perfect way for him. He's actually also been feuding with Joe Hendry a bit. So I could see that animosity kind of being the final 2. Like maybe they put their differences aside to put down Moose, or I think you said last week, having all 5 other competitors taking Moose down quickly, getting him
just to have him being the first one gone,
like getting like a 5-person submission where just to get him out.
Just all 5 guys hit their finisher on Moose real quick, and like they don't even care who pins them, or all 5 of them just pin them.
Yeah, just a dog pile on top of them. But I could see Frankie versus Joe Hendry as the final 2, and have Kaz actually upsetting Hendry, though it wouldn't technically be an upset if you follow this, but in expectation wise, you'd expect it to be Joe Hendry, and then Kaz coming in and win this title for the first time. It would mean so much to him. I'd be rooting for that, to be honest with you. And then you can have him feud with Joe Hendry for a little bit, which could be a really cool clinic, and let them have that time to do that.
So I know last week I had thrown this idea out there with Jordan Grace going into the 6-way. I'm gonna throw another. I'm going to throw another monkey wrench into this. I like that one too, but I'm going to throw another little monkey wrench into this for you. What if the 6th person in there is is an NXT wrestler?
I can see that.
Like, that would be a really cool way to, like, I don't think it would be Trick Williams, obviously, but there's enough guys in there that you could throw in, or even
Who's the
like
guy
a
that just got
Wesley who used
arrested?
to work. Who's that?
Who got kayfabe arrested? He was the one that like was pushing him out. He was like he kept getting kicked out of the arena by like
Brooks
yelling at.
Jensen. Brooks
So like, I can see
Brooks Jensen.
all of that actually building to this. You know what I mean? Like
I
he's
could
still
also
on the
see it
contract with them and
being.
doing that.
I could see it being Wesley as well. He has a lot of connection to TNA. He was there with. He's one of the original. Because originally the Rascals were all three. It was Wentz and Trey Miguel and Wesley. When I forget. I'm so sorry. I forget. He's been Wesley for so long that I don't remember what his TNA name was. But they used to do some really, really cool high flying stuff where, though I'm not normally into the just the automatic high flying stuff, their stuff was so different that it kind of made you look and look different about it. So I could see that one. Either way, this 6-way's shaping up really nicely already, and we're already throwing a bunch of rumors out there, which is kind of what you want for this, right? Like you have a bunch of cross promotions.
100%.
Also,
And then all this building to Slammiversary, which is July 20th. So that's only 18 days away.
I can't wait for that. Actually, that's going to be a good one. We've got a lot of really good pay-per-views, PLEs, whatever you want to call them, coming up. They are. It looks like TNA is also setting up Jonathan Gresham and Kushida, which that should be. It's funny because Gresham's been doing this otherworldly character, but if you just if you just look at this on the surface of who these two guys are, this is a phenomenal wrestling match. Like straight wrestling hold for hold. Kushida and Gresham can go. And I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe let them, wrestle, which would be cool. I'd like that. Like, hey, we've been doing all of this scary stuff with Gresham lately. Let's let him do what he's really good at, and that's wrestle. So that excites me. And also, TNA is building more and more for Ash by Elegance versus Jordan Grace, which seems to be happening at Slammiversary as well. I know Ash by Elegance just won her first singles title ever.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Congratulations. I believe it was WSW, which is Australia. I think they just also put the title on Mr. Nick Nemeth. So maybe the reports we had on Nick Nemeth slowing down a little bit are greatly exaggerated. Let's see how they move on from here. This might also be the way that they put the title on Nemeth too. There's all of these guys. It makes sense that they could put the title on them in the 6-way right now.
Yeah, they do, like that's what I really like about this match leading up to Slammiversary is first of all I like that it's an elimination match. When you have this many people, I want everyone to lose but one person. Like I dig that. Like instead of like one person randomly getting a win because somebody else hit that guy with a boulder or whatever it is that they used in that moment. So like I really dig that this is an elimination style match and one person's going to clearly come out on top. With that said, Nick Nemeth is starting to feel an awful lot like Dolph Ziggler. Where they brought him in, they built him up just to be able to put other people over. And that's unfortunate because I really like Nick. I think that he has the ability to carry a promotion like TNA, like be their champion at least for a little while. Not a transition champion per se, but like have that championship title for a couple of months. Maybe similar runs to like what Joe has or kind of what Priest is currently in the middle of. So like I could really see that and that being good TV and drawing. So I kind of think back of all those things. So hopefully, I mean, WSW isn't huge here in the States, so I don't really know how big they are in Australia. If it's one of their bigger promotions, him getting that title is fantastic. Same thing with Ash by Elegance. Obviously, they're able to work both TNA and WSW. And honestly, the more I watch Ash by Elegance, the more she's over with me. I really dig it. She's got this dope, like bejeweled brass knuckles or like bejeweled knuckles that she uses. And It's fancy. It's fancy. I like it.
You like fancy stuff. I know you do.
I like fancy. Yeah,
So this week
I'm
in
easily bought.
you you do like fancy. You kind of like fancy and colorful a little bit. You're like Jesse the Body
You know,
Ventura like that. You like fancy, colorful stuff.
should I get boas?
Uh,
Is that what I'm missing?
maybe.
I
Listen,
don't know. The coloring of my
we'll ask the
beard
people.
almost kind of
To
the color
to
of
the
my beard almost
Legion,
gets
if
that.
I mean it is true. To the Legion, if you want Mr. Showtime to start wearing some boas, you need to let us know because he will do it. He'll make you
Right
guys
there.
happy. He won't make me happy, but he'll do it for you. Uh, all right. So, Jesus. AEW this week. This was kind of their go home blow off week, leading into Forbidden Door. They did a lot of stuff. A lot of this was kind of predictable in the sense Swerve attacked Osprey after they had a tag match, which I said this whole time. Swerve was going to have to lean into being more of the heel in the situation, even if he wasn't really going to be a heel. He had to be the more of a bad guy in this whole situation. They did that, and then they did the weigh-in, I believe, on Collision.
Oh,
So that's and they were. I know Osprey teased hitting the hidden blade during that. They had the 6-woman tag match between Tony Storm, Mina Shirakawa, Mariah May versus Soraya, Harley Cameron, and Anna Jay. That was kind of just them setting up more of the Mina Tony match, which I believe that was where they did the champagne smashing as well, where Mina
yep.
accidentally smashed Mariah. In news that
With
doesn't
these
actually pertain.
with these two last things you just mentioned, with the Swerve, Osprey, and the Mina and Tony, I really like the build. Like I think, like we talk about, I feel like I want to give AEW a little bit of credit, and obviously we're going to review Forbidden Door in a separate episode, since we mentioned it like 3 or 4 times already tonight. But like we've been begging for, like, give me some builds that really matter, that makes me want to care about it. And I really think that they did a great job with the Swerve Osprey angle. I think they did a really good job with the Mina Tony angle. Now I'm not going to spoil what happened at Forbidden Door, but even leading to both of those matches, the way it came to fruition, the way they end, I think that they went from start to finish kind of good stories. It was a little bit shorter than you'd expect for some of that longer term storytelling from like WWE, but for the way AEW will do these kind of stories, I think these ones were some of their best in recent history, and I really enjoyed these.
I agree. I think they did a very good job in building up these stories. My only issue is just in general. We've said it about Swerve being the world champion. He still feels very much like he's not being treated correctly as the world champion. I thought this build up was good for it, but again, I think unfortunately, I think the damage has been done to Swerve's title reign, unfortunately, and I think it's gonna take possibly a few months of them course correcting before we start seeing Swerve as the dominant champion that they want him to be right now.
I disagree, but I don't know if I can talk about it right now. I
That's fair.
disagree until we do the Forbidden Door review show. If you want to know what I think about that, listen to that show, and I'll give a little bit more insight into that there.
Mr. Showtime, always plugging for the future.
Hey, listen, there's another show. This one's going to be a lot shorter than normal, guys. I promise.
So
I'm trying
we've
to make this
got
more snackable.
in other AEW news, Hikaru Shida advanced in the women's Owen Hart tournament. This is cool. Hikaru Shida is former women's champion for AEW. She's one of the few Japanese wrestlers that have come through as far as the women go. That honestly, she looks athletic. She's not one of the 87-pound women that come through that makes me wonder if she could actually hurt anybody. So that one kind of makes me happy. She also beat Deonna Purrazzo, which that was, I love Deonna, and if you can make it believable that you beat her, that automatically gives you a little bit of a leg up on the competition for me. What else do we have? So Kyle O'Reilly and Zack Sabre Jr. put on a technical masterpiece over the weekend, leading into Forbidden Door. This was to show how good Zack Sabre Jr. is and put him in there with Kyle O'Reilly, who is one of those guys who could go hold for hold with him. That was the whole reason for it, but they did put on an awesome, short little clinic of a match. To go heading into Forbidden Door, Will Ospreay had already guaranteed Daniel Garcia a match for, at the very least, the international title. That is, I believe that should be happening at the Dynamite episode that should be on the July 3rd. So he at least is offering him the international title. Again, we will get more into Forbidden Door when we do our review episode of that. But if Will Ospreay wins the world title, he said he would offer Daniel Garcia a world title match as, instead of the international title match. Whether he wins or he loses, we still have to find that out. That is in the future. That is later. But most of everything that AEW did this past week was kind of just build up and go home stuff for Forbidden Door. I don't even think they really did anything big between MJF and Hechicero. They just kind of, again, this has been a days-long feud. So
So with a lot of these, what I've been noticing recently for both AEW and for WWE, the build-up shows leading into it have kind of fallen a little flat for me, and I think we'll get into this a little bit from Raw, which, like, the shows before the week of the pay-per-view, or PLE, depending on what we're talking about, have been fantastic. They're big. They're maybe even a little overbloated in certain situations, but then the week of, they're like, all right, let's pull back drastically, and really just give people just a little taste so they watch the pay per view or PLE. And not to say I blame them for it, but I just feel like both the build up for WWE and AEW, since they're both kind of leading into a major PLE, was just, it was a little light. It felt a little light. Couple of weigh-ins, couple of contract signings, finishing a tournament match here or there is kind of what I'm seeing. There are some really good highlights, and we'll get into WWE in a second, but they're like that. That's just kind of what I've been getting from these things. It's kind of almost formulaic at this point in time, where you're gonna be, yeah, like, fantastic card, fantastic card, fantastic card. All right, let's catch your breath, and then PLA.
So I know WWE in the past has always kind of had a lighter blow-off week, and if for no other reason, it's so that no one's hurt going into the pay-per-view. I know they do it a lot of times that way. Like, if you notice, a lot of these guys won't have matches going into the pay-per-view anymore because it's going to really suck if you have a match on Sunday or Saturday with WWE in this case now, and on Friday night you break your ankle. And they're kind of they do it a lot to protect their investment with that one. And I wouldn't be surprised if AEW is kind of doing the same thing right now with the amount of times they've gotten bitten by the injury bug. And I
get that, except for the fact that Raw had less than an hour of wrestling this week, and it's a 3-hour program. And I believe one of the W's in WWE stands for wrestling. Just say, like,
I heard it was the second one. Edge told me it was the second one at one point.
Did he? But you can never really trust Copeland.
Who knows? All right, let's see. Speaking of the World W Entertainment,
WWE.
SmackDown this week, we had a couple more qualifiers for Money in the Bank. Naomi qualified. and Tiffany Stratton qualified. That was kind of the Tiffany one was kind of a no-brainer. It looks like most of our picks for who is going to be in the women's one has been pretty right on. Like we've been pretty dead on for that one. We'll
Yeah,
get
the
more
only
into
one
the Raw stuff.
the only one we missed was can I say it? Will you let me say who the last
I'll
person
let you
is?
say it's a spoiler. This is a spoiler for Raw. We haven't gotten to
It's
Raw
a
yet.
spoiler from Raw that's going to happen in 3 minutes. Is so the only one that we missed from the Money in the Bank is Zoe. We each had we also picked 7 people, so like a couple people were kind of in there that shouldn't have been. But and like I had Maxine, and then you had who we both had
Candice LeRae
Candice LeRae.
and
We both had
Zelina. I
Candice
had
LeRae.
Zelina as
Yeah,
well.
Zelina. That's who I was missing here. So with those, and then I had kind of James, but then quickly tried to backtrack with the minute I realized I forgot Naomi because I was dumb. But so we had most of those. It's actually the men's one that we like. I had Braun, I had Finn, I had Lashley, I had Solo. So like essentially, like there's 4. Like obviously we had 7 here. I had Drew, Jey Uso, and LA Knight correct, and you had Andrade in there. Did you miss anybody
It
else?
looks like it's shaping up both of these matches are shaping up pretty well though. So LA Knight qualified for the Money in the Bank on this past Friday SmackDown as well. Those were kind of the biggest things from this. They're leading in for as far as the SmackDown match goes, it's the main event for Money in the Bank realistically is going to be that 6-man tag match with Cody, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens versus whichever 3 members of the Bloodline are there. And speaking of the Bloodline, can we just talk about how much I love Paul Heyman?
He
Paul
did, man.
Heyman,
He did.
he's dead, but he also,
He did.
I heard he didn't sleep the night before this show. So he actually looked like he was all worried and stuff like that. That is, say what you will about the man, but he is insanely OCD about this.
He's
And
dedicated to
good
the
for him.
craft. Like
He's so
essentially,
dedicated.
he wants it to look as and like the little things he does in his current state. Like I've mentioned it before on the show that absolutely cracks me up every time. Is like when he's in these like high stressed situations. Whenever one of the interviewers comes up, he like jumps and oh. And like I love that stuff. I think it's so funny and it's so minute detail. Like if he didn't do it, is not necessarily worse, but the fact he does it makes it substantially better. It's so small. Like you wouldn't notice if it wasn't there. But the fact that he does it, you're like Paul is he's really taking it to the next level. He
So
always does. That's the reason why he's like the best ever.
So before we get into the Bloodline stuff, I do also want to say that this was Caleb Braxton's last WWE event, which I mean, you picked Madison Square Garden to leave. It's not a bad night. She's the one who had most of the interactions with Heyman, where she would walk up and and part of it was because she's short, so she would walk up and sneak up on him, and like he would do that little jump that and be like, "You weird little girl, go away." I also want to note that they did not have the Jimmy Uso versus Damian Priest match on this SmackDown. The reason for it, come to find out, was that Damian Priest flight got completely canceled on him, basically. Like he was just sitting in an airport somewhere. So I actually feel bad for Priest on this one. This is when you're from the Northeast, as we all are, as far as me and Showtime, and he's actually from New York. There is nothing you want to do more than main event Madison Square Garden. I'm sorry, that's you get your WrestleMania moment and you main event Madison Square Garden. As far as wrestling goes, that is it. And he got his WrestleMania moment, and he was about to main event Madison Square Garden, and the flight took a crap on him.
This match was cursed in the beginning. If you remember, this was also the match that was leaked that ruined the end of Clash at the Castle, because it was Jey Uso versus Damian Priest. They were kind of teasing that out there ahead of time with the Priest as champion. So I feel like this was cursed from the get go for him.
It was. I still feel bad for him. He's a friend of mine. It's upsetting that he didn't get his moment. Hopefully, he will eventually get that moment back. I hope he does. I really do. But back onto the Bloodline stuff. How great was Paul Heyman during this segment? Just everything about that he did. He looked tortured. He was nervous. He let his hair get a little gray for it. Just everything was. Showtime, you're mute.
He allowed it to happen? I let myself get this gray? Is that how that works?
Yes, you let yourself get that gray.
Oh, son of a... No one told me.
Yeah, see that? We can make that happen like that.
Yeah, he didn't shave for this minute. He really went all out.
And even just how he reacted to everything with the acknowledge me and the I acknowledge that you are not my tribal chief.
About time. Glad he took a stand.
And as soon as he said it, you knew. He
spiked
knew
immediately too. You didn't have enough time to register it before you got spiked. I really like the decision for Paul to end it, rather than them be fed up with him and throwing him aside. Like, I didn't want them to Jimmy Paul here, where like him not acknowledging him makes him such more of a badass, in my opinion, because he knew he was doomed. He had no chance against the three of them. Even if you are a professional athlete, you had no chance against the three on one. And now you have Paul Heyman, who is not a in-ring performer, just get absolutely decimated. He dead, man. He dead. We're never going to see him again. He dead.
At least not until Roman comes back. And then you'll hear, ladies and gentlemen. And what kind of pop will we get when Heyman says it this time?
Well, how about this? And I know that we're going to do a prediction show for Money in the Bank, but what if Paul Heyman, you hear him say that for Cody Rhodes? You remember how we had heard recently Cody was talking about wanting an old school manager. Everyone said Arn Anderson. We said Arn Anderson. But Paul Heyman fits that bill as well. And with no Roman around, with the bloodline destroying Paul, having a little backup, having someone who can, protect Paul Heyman in the situation, and Cody Rhodes getting exactly what he wanted, could be a really nice fit.
And thus, Paul becomes the singles manager that Captain Lou Albano was, and he'll have managed like 3 or 4 straight world champions. He managed Brock Lesnar. He managed Roman Reigns. He'll have managed Cody Rhodes. I don't know if that's a good.
He managed Punk too, didn't he?
He managed Punk at one point, but not. Yes, he was managing Punk. He's managed a couple different people at this point, but just in an actual row, he went from Lesnar, who was I think the champion at the time, to Reigns to it would have been to Cody if he goes over there.
Does Big Show count in there? Because technically he double crossed Brock to give Big Show the title in that.
He does it a lot. Yeah, and yes, that does count. He does that a lot. I'm going to bring this up too. I know I gushed over Jacob Fatu last week, and I'm going to gush over him again.
You won't do it.
Here's where I'm at with Jacob Fatu. First of all, he looks, again, I still think Jacob Fatu looks absolutely phenomenal. He looks different than everyone else that we have been seeing, even in the world of the bloodline and the Samoans and stuff like that. There's a real good chance that Jacob Fatu might be the biggest signing between either one of the two companies this year. And I'm actually putting him over on Ospreay at this point. I love Ospreay, and I think Ospreay is having the best matches. But Jacob Fatu might change the landscape even more so than Ospreay did. And if we're talking about, and also if you're looking at it, and I'm going to be the guy who looks at it a little bit money wise on this one, Jacob Fatu is probably getting paid significantly less than Okada or Mercedes or Ospreay are right now, and he's going to go in there, and I think don't get me wrong, I think he fits WWE more perfectly, but I think he also would have smashed out AEW as well, and they could have signed him if they wanted to.
Yeah, I agree with what you said in the latter part of this. I can't see how you can consider him a better signing than any of the other three major signings from AEW. The way they've handled them, the way that they've come out. Now, talk to me in 2 months when Jacob Fatu is not just a background character in the bloodline, when he takes a more center stage, and then we can readdress
that's what I'm saying. I think this is going to be one of those like, hey, today he's not, but it's a week old.
Sure,
I think
you're jumping the gun really, really too quickly.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if by, let's say, Royal Rumble, he's made the transition far enough where we're looking at him going, oh, this was a bigger deal than we were even giving it credit for, and everyone was making a huge deal out of it, and it's going to be an even bigger deal then. Like, don't be surprised if Jacob Fatu doesn't win the Royal Rumble, or does win the Royal Rumble.
It's going to be his cousin, his brother, his nephew. I don't know.
They're all, I don't know.
Whatever they are.
Acknowledge. So that was SmackDown. We're going to move on to Raw again. This is going to be a little bit of a quicker, smaller episode, just because most of the stuff is going to be the review of Forbidden Door on its own episode and the preview of Money in the Bank, which is also going to be its own little small entity, if you will.
Yeah, we're going to cut this one down so we can talk longer, essentially.
Basically. So you can hear us even more. Isn't that what everyone wants? I know that's what we want.
That's what I'm looking for.
So Raw starts off with Jey Uso, and my God, is Jey Uso over. I know we keep saying it, but he is so insane. Over. Like, it's almost, he's almost as over as Dominic Mysterio gets heat. And it's almost inexplainable. Because I'm
not I'm not sure why.
And like, I don't dislike Jey Uso. I don't understand how he's this over.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I get it, right? He had a fantastic story to where he got to. His whole story throughout the bloodline was absolutely fantastic. It's almost like he was the actual main character in the bloodline rather than Roman. I don't know if you equate it to some stories that you see or some movies, like the guy that you think you're following as the main character isn't really the main character. I could see Jey Uso being in that kind of situation, but the fact that he pledged his allegiance, was the last one fighting back, then pledged his allegiance, was all in, got out of that from under that thumb of Roman to kind of forge his own path. I understand why everyone is so over on him. I would like to see his ring work be a little bit better. That's always what I'm looking for. But I think that he is he's a little too over, in my opinion.
It's a little. Oh my God, it's Wrath. A little too Wrath. Sorry, that might be a little bit too old of a reference for some of our listeners to understand, but.
I bet you there's very few younger people listening to our podcast.
That is also true. I also really dug that Jey Uso called it the Money in the Bank heat case, That was that
Meat
got
cakes.
that got over on me. I'm not gonna lie. That made me pop a little bit. I was sitting in my chair just laughing. But that led into him and Chad Gable getting into it, which then obviously led into the White Six showing up, or at least Sister Abigail showing up. I'm still kind of interested to see with this White Six what character Alexa Bliss is going to form, if she's just going to be Alexa Bliss. And as much as like Uncle Howdy is the leader, I'm doing quote marks in the air for anyone who's just listening. As much as he's technically the leader of this group, is maybe Alexa Bliss gonna come in as like the demonic Alexa Bliss and be the real leader of this group? Like, hey, she's the real star out of all of them previous.
I see where you're coming from, but I think
it's
they
more of an
have
asking of the question. Like,
sure. I don't think so. I could see her being the solid number 2 here, similar to how she was with the Fiend, just for Bo. Because Bo, they have like lightning in a bottle here, right? It's very few opportunities that you have someone that people are ready to put over, right? I feel like a lot of times in these situations, the fans are ready to hate the person because they know that they want to get them over. Whereas in the love for Bray Wyatt was so strong that Bo coming in to fill in that space, like he has to mess up to fail because I think everyone else wants him to succeed. And so far, the Wyatt Six faction and how they built it up. These vignettes that they're cutting, these VHS tapes that they keep providing have been fantastic. And we were talking about it before the show. The one thing that I'm just missing on this is I want to see more action from them. Like, we got one decimation of the backstage area where Chad Gable died and came back. He might be a messiah now. And then a bunch of jobbers in the back where like some people looked like real stars, but no, I assure you, no one back there was any consequence. I want to see them. I want to see them mess some stuff up. I want to see them get out there and have like Sister Abigail keeps coming out. Like, give her a match, have her like viciously attack Chad on the neck or something, and just give me some action from these guys because the build has been so good and so long and so slow that now I'm hungry. It's starting to get to a tipping point for me. Like, I want to see some action out of these guys, like, and not just like action that happened and I'm seeing them and the carnage that they left behind them. Like, I want to see the action.
So I to kind of go back to how I was saying it though, and actually agreeing with how you were just saying it. So the stuff with the vignettes and what Bo is doing is amazing. His mic work, the way he's cutting these vignettes is awesome. The question is going to be a little. I could see it being like Bo in these vignettes or Captain Howdy, however you want to do. Uncle Howdy, I'm sorry, is awesome. And then, but almost to kind of keep him protected, I could see them bringing in Alexa Bliss as the in-person mouthpiece, which leaves her as, like you said, the number 2. But I could see that being like, oh, Uncle Howdy only speaks to everyone at once. He doesn't talk in the ring. He does action in the ring. He talks in the burned down Firefly Funhouse or whatever it was, and then Alexa Bliss speaks for them. So I could almost see that being it, and that kind of goes along with what you were saying. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with her. Moving on from that stuff, we'll talk a little bit more about the actual video. I thought this was really cool how it stopped being him talking to himself or talking to Uncle Howdy, and you just realize that he is Uncle Howdy. Like, I liked how they did this stuff.
Well, I got the feeling that Bo was a victim here. Like he was like I don't know if you remember they were talking about the therapist that went missing. And this almost felt like Uncle Howdy kidnapped Bo. And because he had said things like, "How much longer are we going to do this?" Like almost like he was being interrogated, held against his will, which I thought was a really cool aspect of this episode, that or whatever you want to call this VHS recording. Which so I dug that where he is one of those people who is being held against his own will. It just happens to be that he's being held against his own will by himself, which is a weird dynamic to kind of wrap your head around.
I also really like that kind of by the end of it, he got like you saw Bo get angry at the end of it a little bit. Like it was like when they asked him if he thought he was special and things like that. Like I think the asking him if he was special, I think that was kind of a little bit of a callback to Bray. I know all of this is obviously a callback to Bray, but I really felt like that was like how he delivered those lines right afterwards were very, very Bray Wyatt type lines. Like to insinuate that I'm special means that other people are not. Like that's Bray Wyatt, like right to a T. So a lot of that was really cool how they did that. And I like that kind of you saw him as they were getting to the point where they were merging, I guess. It seemed like Bo was getting more and more like angry. And I used to say it when I would talk about the Heath Ledger Joker. So like Jack Nicholson was like crazy Joker, and he was a gangster and stuff like that. And he did a lot of anarchy type stuff where Ledger, as much as he was promoting anarchy, had that like angry crazy about him. Like he laughed but there was an anger to his laughter, which I always dug about his. Like there's always those little nuances. I think this is that level. Like you're angry crazy. Like you're gonna
This is what I call a fractured mind. So I think that's what we're witnessing is that fractured mind where you've kind of experienced a great trauma, which goes to exactly what you're talking about with the Heath Ledger Joker. There's a bunch of crazy film theories that he's actually a war veteran,
a war vet, and he's got like PTSD and stuff like that.
Exactly, like so, like that's his traumatic thing. The losing Bray and being forgotten is Bo's traumatic experience, and the fracturing of his mind is what allows him to cope with the loss or with the heartache or with the emotions that he's not, mature enough to digest as an adult, that it turns in on yourself and you form this crutch, which is Uncle Howdy, which I absolutely love this level of storytelling. And like we said, I like that they took away the mystical aspect of things, even though that's what I want. But it's cool that they took that out for more of this surreal, more of this this real person that's clearly hurting, that has brought in a family of other people who needed each other, who needed this other hurt, and then they're going to go and inflict a bunch of pain on people. Like there is a reckoning, as I think he said 2 or 3 times.
When he said "I am the reckoning," I was like, "Oh, this is cool!" Like how they were talking about it. Like when he was like, "I'm the voice of the reckoning," and then Uncle Howdy said, "I am the reckoning." I was like, "Oh, like." Kind of the like again, what was this? It was like 4.5 minutes. Like this was 4.5 minutes of awesome.
Yeah, and last week's was fantastic. I do want to ask you, Steve, what if you had to guess who their first victim, the first person they were going after, would Chad Gable even been on your radar?
No, and it's perfect right now.
It's good. Like they've been setting it up. That like they've been leaving the breadcrumbs. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Jey Uso actually is on their hit list. Like maybe at Money in the Bank, and I'm not saying this is going to affect my predictions or not, or maybe it will. But like Money in the Bank, maybe the fact that like he's on the ladder, and as he's reaching for the briefcase, the arena goes dark, and then the lights come back on, and Uso's
And
no
they're all
longer on the
there,
ladder. Oh,
or
not
he's
even if
just
they're
not
there.
there.
He's just gone. And like that could be, and like maybe there's a mask where it was, or some sort of like rabbit's foot or whatever weird trinket they're gonna leave behind to prove to you that it's the Wyatt Six. But then like he vanishes and he was actually a victim, as Chad was warning him. It could be really interesting because like you can kind of spin this story. I love when people spin the story as a bad guy, but if you actually take a sense and you take your emotions out of it, being like, actually everything you said was the truth. Like that's kind of what happened here because Jay leaving, he did turn his back on his brother Jimmy. Jimmy is now out of commission now, and if Jay was around, maybe that wouldn't happen. So there is that layer of truth that people use to manipulate other people.
I wouldn't be surprised if this Wyatt Six stuff also goes kind of along the lines of almost what like Karrion Kross in the Final Testament, or at least what Karrion Kross was doing before he kind of formed the Final Testament. The whole like I'm going to break everyone else. So I like almost like they're gonna fix everybody else though. Like the whole thing, like Chad Gable stopped saying thank you. So like all of a sudden now they're the reason why he was one of the victims was, well, we're gonna get you back to being what worked for you.
We're
Or
fixing
we're
you.
gonna like if it yeah, like they go back and like they're trying to fix everybody by beating them where Karrion Kross is trying to break them all. So the Shinsuke losing his honor and thing like that. This guy, as much as these guys are bad guys, they're trying to do the opposite of what everyone else is doing.
And are they? Like,
We don't know.
they're misfits, right? They're people who, on the surface, seem like they should be like extras in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but at the end of the day, they're more like the misfits, the forgotten, the island of misfit toys, like whatever you want to call it, where they end up being the good guys in all of this, which could be a crazy spin. Because like as of right now, I know they haven't targeted too many people at this point in time, but as of right now, they're targeting a heel.
Yeah. Well, and
That
they're
makes them a good guy, technically.
I know you said the Island of Misfit Toys. Obviously, you called back to a movie with that. Let's go another toy one. They're the Gorgonites.
Yeah.
They're the small soldiers that, hey, they look like monsters. Maybe they're not monsters. I mean, they are monsters, but maybe they're really just trying to fix. Like you said, maybe they are the good guys,
Maybe
which
they're
would
the good
be
guys.
weird but awesome. It'd be so different. You heard it here first, folks.
Obviously, it all comes here first.
It always listen. He might always be Mr. Showtime Michael Wright, so he's always right. But the show in general is usually right. So we had some other stuff that happened on Raw that was kind of cool too. Zoe Starks being a surprise qualifier for the Money in the Bank. I did not see that one coming. Mainly because she's been doing so much stuff with for the tag team titles. I didn't think that her or Shayna were gonna be qualifying for this, but this is a nice little dark horse in there. I don't think she's gonna win the Money in the Bank, but we'll get more into that when we do that preview episode. It just seems like this is. Maybe Shayna is actually hurt. Maybe her knee is a little wonky on this one. So they're letting Zoe kind of go in there and probably put on a good match at Money in the Bank. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Dakota Kai didn't sneak in here after her kind of pleading on social media to a certain extent, because I feel like any one of these three Ivy Nile, Zoe Stark, or Dakota Kai could have moved forward. I think this trio was someone who could add some real context to that match that aren't going to be one of the people who win.
So I think Dakota losing lends a little bit more towards the damage control having issues.
Sure.
So I think her losing adds more to that than her winning adds to the match type of thing. And once you kind of look into it that way, I think it's kind of a toss up between Zoe and Ivy at that point. They're very, very similar base characters type of thing. So at that point, whether it was Zoe Starks or Ivy Nile, you're kind of just, hey, we're throwing the fitness chick in there. Even though Zoe has a little bit more to her than Ivy does as far as character goes, their base is still just that they're the fitness competitors. Liv retained against Zelina Vega. I kind of figured that it didn't feel like we were going to take the title off Liv on a random go home Raw before a pay-per-view. But also because of her being out there, I probably would have, yeah. I know they teased Rhea maybe coming back tonight. They talked to Rhea a lot, or they talked about Rhea a lot. Priest said that he's actually spoken with Rhea and that she's pissed, which maybe Dom's just letting that marinate for himself. Like, hey, like, I'm going to let you get really mad at me and then take it out on me. Which, by the way, congratulations, Rhea Ripley and Buddy Matthews on getting married. That's an official thing. Cool for you guys. I'm really happy for y'all that you guys seem like a really happy couple. So that's pretty awesome. But I don't know, storyline wise, I don't know if I'd want mommy mad at me.
Not in the bad way, but in the good way.
No,
I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah, and I think she's mad in the bad way.
Yeah.
Again, Liv kind of cost Dom his match against his father, which one of the things Dom said recent in this week's Raw or last week's Raw was he told Priest that he's starting to sound a lot like his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of telling of where Priest is with the Judgment Day and everything, and like kind of how this whole Liv, Judgment Day, Rhea, Priest, and just everything about this, it's starting to really, really flesh out and air out a bit, where I think we're going to get some cooler stuff out of it, even more cool stuff out of this.
I am just dying for Dom to break out here. Like, he is, like, they need to stop having him lose matches. Man, am I just ready for him to beat his father already, that deadbeat. And like, I want to start seeing him taking more seriously, because right now I feel like he's playing the role he needed to play over the last couple of years or however long it's been. And the fan with the nuclear heat that they have against him, now it's time to make him a serious competitor, in my opinion. It's time to pull the trigger on Dominic Mysterio and have him start winning some stuff, upsetting some people. Like, I would love to see him go over on Braun Strowman clean. Just out of nowhere, he cleanly goes over, and everyone was like, "What did I just witness?" Like, I don't understand how
what just happened.
Yeah, like this wasn't in the script. Like,
I think it's broken. This? Like, what does high score mean?
Cut to a commercial. We gotta fix this. Like, I want to see something like that because it's time, and I'm dying for the third WrestleMania in a row to get Dom versus Ray, because clearly that's what's going to happen. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I want to see a mask versus hair match. Like, they are setting this up perfectly in the classic Mexican style, and this is kind of Ray's retirement. Not that I necessarily need Ray to retire. I still am very entertained by him. He doesn't seem like he's losing steps where I think he needs to go. But when he does need to go, I want to see hair versus mask. I want to see Dom take the mask and then, like, wear it on occasion. Like not necessarily wear it to a point where where you never see his face again, but like wear it down to the ring, almost like embody it a little bit of himself, like where it's not just him wearing it to taunt his dad, but also it's become a part of him. I just think that tradition of that handoff would be so good. And then from the time he has that mask on, even before that, he's like an actual competitor, like where we're seeing him go up against like Braun Breaker and not just expecting to see a 6-minute squash match, but like how Dom could antagonize Braun Breaker to a limit where he actually wins the match because he frustrated Braun Breaker so much that he made that one mistake that Dom was able to capitalize on and take him down. Like that shit is awesome.
I love the fact that you said mask versus hair match because it was leading into a question that I really, really wanted to ask you. So last week I brought up his perfect mustache. This week I'm going to bring up his perfect mullet.
Yeah, the mullet's perfect. Like it's so good.
No. So this is the question I'm going to ask because it seems like it has grown at an ungodly pace. Do you think that they put mullet extensions in?
Sure, why not?
This is a real question. Like I really think that because it went from being just like, hey, he's got an annoying Eddie mullet, like Eddie in Mexico mullet, to he's got Eddie like end of WCW mullet going on, and like it went pretty quick.
Female competitor wears extensions.
Exactly.
Like
so that's why I'm not even throwing shade at him for it. I'm just wondering if you think that that's what's happening because I was looking I was looking during Raw. I'm like, I wonder if he's wearing extensions. It was just one of those things that for some reason clicked at that exact point, and I really wanted to bring it up on the show.
To answer your question, no, I actually don't think he's wearing them. I think this is his real hair. But I'd have zero surprise if it was actually extensions.
Like if we did the hair versus mask match, and when he went to shave it, like pulled it out and realized it was
the whole thing came off. It's just one big ring.
It's just a nasty weave. Even better.
Yeah.
By the way, Triple H, if you're looking for us, we will sign.
That's a bad idea, though. Don't listen to that one. That's
but at the same time,
that came from him or him.
You know who could pull this one off? R-Truth.
Definitely.
All right, so moving on from Liv and Dom, we get a little bit more with Karrion Kross in the Final Testament. Kross ends up losing to Xavier Woods, and then him and the Final Testament snap and injure Kofi. I'm still digging this whole thing. I'd like them to get a little bit more time, and I understand that maybe this isn't a top tier storyline, but I'd love to see how they can really, really flesh this whole thing out. And then last but certainly not least, I don't know anyone who thought that Drew McIntyre was going to be in Money in the Bank. It's not like this show has been saying it for weeks.
It's a travesty that Drew McIntyre had to fight in a match against two of the most fierce competitors in this entire tournament to get a shot at the Money in the Bank. With what CM Punk has done to this poor man.
Match.
Yeah, fantastic. But the fact that he had to earn his way in there after having 2 world titles stolen from him, and now he has to prove himself in this, is absolute and utter malarkey.
Hashtag malarkey. Oh man, I am excited for Money in the Bank though. This is, I guess, technically our go home show before Money in the Bank, which should be this weekend. Hey, big ups to WWE for putting on a PLE that's not going to be in the middle of the day. Means
that'd be sweet.
Means we can watch it live this time.
Nope.
Probably not.
I'll be about an hour behind.
But I am excited for Money in the Bank. I am excited to see who wins, who might possibly cash in that night. Who knows what will happen? I think that will be awesome. And folks, thank you for listening again. As always, we appreciate everything that you do with liking and following. All of our stuff for social media will be in the description, in the show description. And we will still also have a lot of the stuff as far as Kako's information in the show description as well. We always like to have people that are friends or family of the show to have that help out. So, guys, please, please, please listen to our preview of Money in the Bank and also listen to our review of Forbidden Door, all of which will be out this week as well. And thanks, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you all. We appreciate you.